All right, welcome to the New England Endurance Podcast, where we celebrate the vibrant endurance community of New England. I'm your host, Eric Schenker, and I am joined by my endurance co-pilot, Art Trapotsis. How are you, Art?
Hey.
Yeah, good to be here. It's we're getting ready for spring, little taste of spring out in the air right now.
I can feel it, ready
even
for a
though
big
it's
group ride this weekend.
Even though it's February, but I think there'll be a lot of folks out there on the roads and trails and maybe swimming. We'll talk a little bit about swimming today, and we're really excited. We got a high-energy podcast coming at you today. We're going to talk with Adina O'Neill, who is a New England-based endurance coach, about how she is getting more people involved in the world of endurance sports here in New England. That's why we're here. I mean, that is literally one of our missions, is to celebrate, and we got to get new people always joining the tribe, so to speak. So we're really, really excited to have this guest here today.
Yes. Today we have Adina from Team Be Real. And Adina and I met a few weeks ago at the Endurance Exchange Conference in North Carolina, put on by USA Triathlon. And I think we just kind of clicked. And, she's the founder of Team Be Real, an endurance sport community where athletes of any size, color, identity, age, and ability are empowered to achieve their personal goals. I like that. She's an athlete herself who's competed in over 100 endurance events like the Paris Marathon, IRONMAN Mont Tremblant in Canada, and she loves to ice swim. We're going to dig into the ice.
We're going to talk a little bit about that.
So, Adina, welcome to the New England Endurance Podcast.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me. It's fun to be here.
So, we like to start this with everybody's personal journey. So can you just take us into your personal journey into the world of endurance sports?
Sure. So I've been an active kid my whole life. Grew up in rural New Jersey, just exploring all over the place with my brother, played different sports. I started swimming when I was 5 years old, went on to, play sports like field hockey. In college, I dabbled in rugby, and I played for about 10 years, rugby.
Oh, you're tough.
Well, it was a good sport for someone of my size, and I felt very welcome there, which was a big reason why I joined the rugby team. And I liked the jerseys, so that was kind of the thing.
Gear is important.
I'm right there with you.
It is always important.
Right there with you. And then as I got older, I got married, I had kids, which is how I ended up in New England, because I met my husband when I was living in France. We were both on an exchange program there, and he's from Quincy, Mass. So we moved back to start a family, and when our kids were younger, I had a friend was doing a triathlon, and she was afraid to get in the ocean and do the swim part. And so she says, will you do it for me? And I was like, I hadn't been in a pool in forever, but I've always loved the ocean. So I broke all the rules. I had never worn a wetsuit. I had never practiced swimming in the ocean. And I just jumped right in. And the energy was out of this world. My kids were still very small, and I pushed them into the world of triathlon. So I have a brother who's been doing triathlons for over 25 years now, and they wanted to be like cool Uncle Mike. So I pushed them in. There used to be a great kids race up in New Hampshire that they participated in at 7 years old. My son did his first try.
Do you remember what that was?
It was called the Granite Kids Triathlon. I don't know if it exists anymore.
I'll have to look into that.
But that's a good, let's put a ribbon on that, only because I would love to do a future episode on youth endurance activities.
Yeah.
Right, where we kind of specialize, because that would be great. There used to be a triathlon over on Chabaco Lake, a youth triathlon, youth running, youth cross-country skiing, youth cycling.
And Karen Smyers still runs one.
Yeah, so we
Lincoln.
should. That's a great idea for youth participation in endurance sports.
I know they still have one at MIT. I think that they do every year. And I know at the USA Tri Exchange, they were talking a lot about encouraging more youth involvement in clubs. So that's definitely a big push in the triathlon world for sure.
As long as they tell the kids aero helmets are banned, right? Until a certain age. Like we don't need kids on their BMX bikes with aero helmet.
Could you tell us a little bit about Team Be Real at a high level and how that came to be?
Team Be Real came to be on a long training swim. I was out swimming in Walden Pond, preparing for some event at some point. I don't remember what it was.
And what do you consider a long training swim? Just curious.
Now what I consider a long training swim might be like 4 or 5 miles. At the time, it was maybe, 2 loops around the pond, which is about a 5K.
That's still incredibly long.
For most people, that's pretty much a long training swim. But it gives you a lot of time to reflect. And one thing that I often reflect on is the fact that, not everybody really thinks they belong in endurance sports, and not everybody feels like they fit in. And
why is that?
My personal experience, as I'm sitting here, you guys can see I'm not very tall, I'm not very slim, I'm not very young, and, these things, I'm also not super fast. These things are, in our society, unfortunately, looked down upon as not being real athletes. And so my mission is to make sure everybody knows if you're out there and you're exercising on purpose, you're a real athlete.
100%. I agree. What about you, Eric?
I mean, I couldn't agree more, and I would say it is intimidating. There's team sports, right? Okay, we're going to join a team. We're going to go play soccer. There's a spot for everybody on the team, right? Whether that's youth athletics, what have you, and obviously it gets up into the club world and it gets very selective. But to say I'm going to go run a race, I'm going to go swim, I'm going to go do a triathlon, it's intimidating. It's intimidating to walk into a bike shop.
Absolutely.
Right? It's, I can be critical of that being in the industry. It's much more welcoming to walk into a running store, right? But walking into a bike shop, there's a lot of questions to ask, and I think it's intimidating. And if you don't look the part, perhaps, right? Maybe you're not going to get that time of day. And I by no means, there are incredible bike shops here that are very, very welcoming, but it's still intimidating.
The very first group ride I went on with the Landry shop in Braintree, they were wonderful, and people have been saying, "Oh, come ride with us, come ride with us." And it is just show up and like, well, are there going to be other people who look like me there? And you can insert any kind of marginalized group into that category, and there's, the other day was Women and Girls in Sports Day. And there's a lot of talk about, are there Black athletes? Are there LGBTQ athletes? And what does that mean? Athletes of all colors and shapes and sizes. But if you don't see someone like you, then you really wonder if you're going to fit in. And I remember I showed up to my first group ride, and this is a bigger problem in society as well, that, fit is thin. And I showed up and I was like, okay, what am I going to look at? And I saw all these skinny people. And well, at the end of the day, I was fitter than many of them. And they probably showed up like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be too slow. Like everybody has this hang up of, am I going to be accepted? Am I going to fit in? And even just being part of a team, like if you were picked last and you were in high school, or, even there's a space for everyone. Like I said, with rugby, I was like, there was a space for short, stocky women. Like that was my job. My job was to be big and strong. I felt at home.
I have a theory that everybody in endurance sports has a chip on their shoulder or something they're trying to overcome from childhood or young adulthood, and they're trying to work through that issue.
Absolutely, yeah.
My issue, I'll state it publicly, is that I was cut from the freshman basketball team, and that shaped virtually all of my future sporting goals, activities, events. And, I think if you get on a group ride or a run and you ask someone, hey, why are you here? No, why are you really here?
Yeah.
And you'll uncover some interesting, deep, dark secrets.
Yeah.
Why are you, Eric?
Yeah. I'm going through the list in my head of which one am I going to talk about, right? But I would say for me, you strike a chord because when I would say my first foray into true endurance sports was in college on the crew team, on the rowing team. And the camaraderie that I felt there about being included, in that case, what people may not realize is a lot of crew teams, and Dean mentioned it earlier, is even this was at the Naval Academy, they're just looking for bodies. So people are walking around looking for tall, fit, well, to your point, looking around for tall, fit people, right? And so to somebody to say, hey, come and try out for this team, come and join us, and we really want you here, that was very intoxicating for me. And then there were all these other elements that I liked, but that first initial come, you're welcome, we're gonna create a community was really special, and I think created the foundation for me. So what you're saying to me is, if you're creating that experience for people that might even have a more challenging time to want to be included or to even be asked to be included, that's pretty spectacular. And I don't know many other programs out there that do that, quite frankly.
Well, and to Art's point, thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm going to be cut. And it was very intentional to call it Team Be Real, because the idea of a team was always the best athletes got to be on the team. And there are many teams in the triathlon world and the endurance world where you apply to be on these teams. And the number of people who I see posting and commenting and talking about how I hope they take me. And it breaks my heart, because it's that same feeling. Am I going to be accepted? Am I going to be good enough? Guess what? You are good enough. If you are out there, and I don't care if you're doing a 5K, if you're doing a 100-meter swim, if you're doing a charity bike ride, if you walk every single day, like, it's all endurance sports because you're enduring something. And if you're out there and you're trying it and you want to be on a team, then you deserve to have a team. Mm-hmm. And that didn't exist. At least in my vision and in my world, that didn't exist. And so I'm loud and I'm not shy. And so I said, I'm going to go for it and I'm going to create it. Like, why not?
Are there, obviously during the workouts, but are there social components to the Be Real team? And is that important to your community?
So I would think that the community and the social aspect is almost more important. And I often lead with that. We're a community of endurance athletes, right? The community part is first, because especially like during the pandemic, and even there's so much more research. Art and I heard a couple of the presenters at the U.S. Endurance Exchange were talking about social interaction is so important. The heart rate variability presentation was talking about one thing you can do to raise your heart rate and heart rate variability is to have more social contact with people.
Okay. My wife said no more acronyms, and you said the words.
Thank you.
Does anybody want to touch on HRV or heart rate variability?
It's a topic in and of itself. Like,
right.
We can go down a long rabbit, but
give it a little.
Generally, yeah. So your heartbeat is not like a clock that it's just going tick, tick, tick. It changes, and the heart rate variability is measuring the time between your heartbeats, basically. And in general, a higher heart rate variability is going to indicate that you are ready for a good performance, and a lower heart rate variability indicates that you may need some rest. I did a couple of reels and information about that on my Instagram as well, trying to get that information out, because it's a big topic right now. Heart rate variability.
What's
with
your
everyone's
Insta handle?
It's Adina_O'Neill_real_fitness.
Well,
it was a little too long.
I got to jump in though on the HRV for a second though. I got sort of a little funny story, and that is, I'm wearing the Oura Ring, I've got Garmin, I love to measure all of this stuff, and I had my physical about a year ago with my primary care physician, and I asked him, I said, so what do you think about HRV? And his response to me was, what is HRV? So it's sort of to your point, I think for us in this community, we realize it's a new thing, certainly very focused on this, in this endurance world. I don't know that it is making it to our primary care physician. Does he or she care about it? No, but I always thought that was funny.
Well,
I asked him, he's like, what is that? And I was like, well, then I guess it's not that really important for you.
Time to find a new doctor, Eric.
Well, but even the presenter who was telling us all about HRV, the last question someone asked was, well, what if I wake up and my HRV is low, but I'm feeling great? And he's like, well, if you're feeling great, you should go, because how you feel is far more important than what your HRV says.
Yeah. It's another data point, right?
It's a data point.
It's another. What are so getting back to the social thing? Because I love socialness about endurance sports. It really is so much of what we do. What are some of the fun things that the Be Real team does?
So first and foremost, we're housed on a Facebook group, because although we're largely based in New England, we've got athletes from across the U.S. And so that way it allows more accessibility. I'm working on international. Their discussions are happening, but
nice.
I mean, people are invited. The time change kind of makes it tricky sometimes when you talk about international. But I really wanted it to be something that was available to everyone who was interested. So we actually, once a month, we have a Zoom meeting. And I always invite a guest, and we always have time to chat and talk to each other. We also meet up and do Saturday and Wednesday group rides on Zoom. So that way you don't have to have a platform or an app that you have to pay for. It's just like we all just meet up on Zoom on Saturdays. I always lead a workout, and that's open to anybody. You don't have to be on Team Be Real. I open that up to anyone.
So regarding the Zoom group ride, is that happening with folks on their indoor trainer?
Indoor trainers. Yep.
Nice.
Yep. So that's largely a wintertime activity.
No Zwift for you?
I am not a Zwift person.
Nor am I.
No.
Nor am I.
I
enjoy it.
I have my workouts. I follow them, and I chit chat with my friends on Zoom while I ride. And I try to be outside as much as I can.
I agree.
And we actually have people who do their Zwift rides and come on Zoom and chat with us while they're following their Zwift ride, right? So they're getting, a lot of people like it. And, they find that it encourages them. They like to watch whatever they're watching, and it's like a video game. But they still don't have the camaraderie of meeting with other people.
That's a great way to build community. How many folks are we talking about that are part of the Team Be Real?
So in the the overall community, we've got a reach of hundreds of people, but the core nucleus, there's about 32 athletes on the team. Maybe about half of that are here in the Boston area.
Excellent.
I got to ask, what's the gender split on that?
Currently, all the people in the community are women.
Awesome. I think it's great.
Yeah.
I think it's just one more inclusive element to it. And it's something that we want to continue to try to highlight here as part of the endurance community. Either highlight the amazing female endurance athletes in this space, but also encourage more women to get into the endurance.
Yeah. Yeah, the men who I've worked with generally, like the one-on-one coaching, none of them have shown interest in being part of the community yet, but hey, guys are welcome.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome.
Because men have issues too. A lot of the guys I've worked with, say, well, I feel like I'm too big.
We got lots of issues.
Everybody does, but a lot of people think that body image issues are specific to women, but they're not. I mean, I've worked with men who have their own body image issues, and they're like, oh, I don't want to sign up for the Clydesdale division, which is that you have to be over a certain weight to be in the Clydesdale division. And they say, well, I don't want to sign up for that. I want to be with an age group. There's nothing wrong with being that size.
I am a proud Clydesdale.
Yeah, but I am going to, to that point, I think it's important I'm going to plug another podcast. I don't think we're in danger of jeopardizing any of their traffic, but it's Rich Roll, who's a great podcast, and he interviewed an athlete that I worked with very closely named Tim Tollefson. And the whole podcast was about Tim, who is one of the best ultra marathoners in the world, multi-podium finisher, UTMB, which is Ultra Mont Blanc. body dysmorphia himself, and his lifelong struggle with that. So I would say when you're done giving us 5 stars and following this New England Endurance podcast, go back and find that episode. I think it was really powerful.
I'm a big
me.
fan of the Rich Roll podcast.
It was quite powerful, and I think I'm glad that we have a chance to touch on that and highlight it.
Christian Blumenfeld a few years ago won the Ironman World Championships, and people were poo-pooing him. They're like, "Oh, if he lost a little weight, then he could have been faster." He just won the Ironman World Championships.
So for those that don't know, Chris, he's racing his guts out. He's the fastest man on the planet, and he looks a little thick.
Yeah.
For that type of triathlete, and I thought it was horrible what folks were saying.
Yeah.
So, what's your long-term vision for Team Be Real?
Have it available to more people. I'm one person, and I'm a solopreneur. So, everything that happens now happens with my own blood, sweat, and tears, with a huge support network called my husband. Because you got to shout out to him.
Shout out to the hubby.
Mark is an amazing. I mean, first of all, I wouldn't be in New England without him, but also, just nothing I do would even happen without the unwavering support. And he's always understood, and just like he's always accepted me for who I am. And we used to joke about. He's like, "Oh, I love you. It's okay. You're fat." Like,
how is that support expressed? Right? Is that allowing, hey, I got the kids, I'll take care. Like we all are supported in different ways. And Art wrote a book on it, right? Called The Everyday Athlete. So I'm just interested in what's the most impactful things he does for you that makes you feel supported in this?
Well, I think it starts with the fact that he's always accepted me for who I am. I mean, when we met, I was this size, and he always loved me for who I am. And, that's the most important thing. And that's really what it comes down to. He doesn't see me as a size. He sees me as me and my energy and my passion. And, we're a team, and pretty much anything I ask him to do for me, he does. He supports me. He comes to events. He came to our team retreat last year, stood out 7 hours in Tropical Storm Ophelia, as we all did Ironman 70.3 relay. He will do anything. He's the quiet, force behind everything I do, just like always in my corner on my biggest days and my hardest days. And sometimes it is taking care of the kids. Sometimes it's putting off his own workout to accommodate something that I'm doing. It's just, you almost can't explain it. Every single thing, just knowing that he's there by my side all the time, no matter what.
Do you work out together?
There have been times. Mark is a CrossFitter and a sprinter. I am an endurance athlete. So we don't always cross paths on our likes, but he did get me to go. I did a couple of obstacle course races with him, which was a lot of fun. He liked the short one. I liked the long one. So sometimes yes, but for the most part, no.
Sometimes that's better.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I guess if we did the same thing, it would be fun to go to events together, but we'd never have to compete. Like I can support him and he can support me, and they don't always overlap. And
you mentioned your team does a retreat. Can you tell us what that's about?
Yeah, so this past year actually was our first year. That was very important to me, considering that we do have people spread throughout. And my idea was I really wanted to have a race where we all went, and I rented an Airbnb for the team, and We could go and people could do the event or parts of an event and really just build that in-person connection. So last year, Ironman was nice enough to put an event on my birthday in Jones Beach. So I rallied up the team and said, who wants to come do a relay? I mean, a lot of the women on my team have never done a 70.3. And so we got relay teams. And, we picked it up. And so everyone could be part of that bigger race and see if that's something that they might want to try someday. And so we had 2 relay teams, and we had a couple people come just as support crew, and volunteer at the race as well. One of the women's a nurse, so she volunteered at the race. And, like I said, I rented a place so nobody had to pay for their lodging, and we had a retreat. And we had a lot of fun, and we got to hang out and be all together. And this year we're going down to, it's not New England, sorry, but we're going down to Rock Hall, Maryland.
We'll edit that out, right?
Yeah.
that they're not doing something in New England, so we'll edit that out.
So we are also going up to the Pumpkin Man, which is in Maine, Pumpkin Man Triathlon.
One of my favorites.
Yeah.
Awesome event. And every year we tend to have women who like to do the Title IX Tri out in Hopkinton, which is in September, because it's a women's only race. Max Performance does a great job with that race, putting it on, and really it's mostly a closed course. And it's a pond swim. It's late, so the water's kind of warm.
I like
and
that.
It's for women only.
Oh, okay.
That's why it's called the Title IX Tri. So,
Understood.
Yeah. And for the last, I think 2 or 3 years, I've had athletes on the team that was their first triathlon. So it's a great event for the first timers to go and just really feel part of that.
That's great. That was sort of a great lead into one of my questions. What are your, staying in New England, let's be clear, favorite races, never miss it? And then also, are there any on your bucket list here in New England that you would like to take a bite out of?
Well, I have to say that I actually don't like to travel with my bike. So most of my races have been here in New England. I'm from New Jersey, so that's why some of the New York, New Jersey events will come in there, but it's okay. My favorite events have been, like I said, the Pumpkin Man was on my list for a long time. I haven't actually done the triathlon because the bike got canceled last year. So that one is still on my bucket list to do the whole event. The Boston Light Swim, I gotta go with the swim first. Is one of the most amazing events. It's the oldest open water swim event in the U.S., if I'm not misquoting. But it's an 8-mile swim from Hull, Massachusetts, into South Boston, and all the islands in the harbor are like your swim buoys. So you have to have a boat that they help navigate you. So I did that one as a relay a couple of years ago. Lots of fun. It's a great event.
How does the relay work?
So we're all we're leaning into that. So do you get so there's a sport called swim run, which is right. You swim, you go to an island, you run across it, but in this case,
this is a swim.
This is a swim. You said 8 mile.
It's an 8-mile swim. You generally have a current with you, so most of the time it swims more like a 10K, like a 6-mile swim. But
okay then. No,
I'm in.
Oh yeah, no problem. Now that you said that.
But you have to have a boat. Like a motorized boat, not just a kayak. So we had a boat, and we had a relay of 4 people, and you just you get on and off the boat. And take turns swimming.
All I can think of is the Diane Nyad sort of movie on Netflix recently, and so any jellyfish in that stretch of water
or sharks.
Usually not sharks. On occasion, you'll get what we get around here are called moon jellyfish most of the time, and they don't sting.
That's good.
That's
a win.
There have been periods of time when we get lion's mane. I try to avoid those because those do sting.
Is that
that's
a jellyfish?
Okay. Yep. But for the most part, it's the cold water is the hardest part for many people,
right?
Because that part of the ocean, generally is in the 60s.
What
all
time
the
of year
time.
is that?
August.
August. Okay.
And how long
Yeah.
does it take with the relay team, approximately?
Well, it depends on your people. They have a 5-hour cutoff. So because they're in the Boston Harbor, and that's what they have a permit for. So there are people who finish it in like 3 hours. I've considered doing it as a solo event, but I'm not a very fast swimmer, and I have kind of moved away from sports that have or events that have these strict cutoff times because I don't find them to be as inclusive for all swimmers.
So it doesn't surprise me that one of your favorite events is a swimming event. When we met for those 30 minutes in North Carolina, you mentioned something about cold water swimming. And there's this event in Vermont that you sign up for where you swim 100 or 200 meters. Can we hear a little bit about this
Yes.
cold water swimming?
So that is a very unique event up in Vermont at Lake Memphremagog. There's an event called the Memphremagog Winter Swim Festival, and the team cuts out a pool in the ice. So, I mean, you're in Vermont, and almost in Quebec. The lake actually spans from Vermont into Quebec. And in the summertime, by the way, another very good New England event is the Kingdom Games. It's a swim event, and one of the swims is you can like swim in that lake like all the way into Vermont and back, which all the way into Canada and back.
Seems like a smuggling opportunity. I would say, you got the little orange buoy oh no, this is my buoy.
Yeah. Well, you have to have a kayaker for that one because it's a long swim.
Yeah.
So you need food and snacks. So that's
How long is it?
the one into Canada is a 25K swim.
25K swim. And
Yeah,
then
so-
the winter swim is how long?
So the winter swim, it's a 25-meter pool. So when the lake freezes over,
Yeah.
they go out and they cut out two 25-meter lanes in
So
the
cool.
ice. They like to call it totally cold is their tagline. So it's two 25-meter lanes, and then they offer 25s, 50s, 25s of like free breast back, 50, 100, and 200 freestyle. So last year I went up for the first time, and I did the 25 breast, the 25 fly, 25 free, and 50 free. And I was kind of kicking. Oh, they have relays too, which is very entertaining. And I was kind of kicking myself for not having signed up for the longer events, but I wasn't. It was the first winter I swam without any kind of wetsuit or gloves or booties or anything. So I went for the short distance, and I just left feeling like I had unfinished business. So I signed up to do the 100 and the 200 as well.
So we're talking about being in the water for 3, 4, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
The water. What's the water
We
temperature?
got to
Yeah,
I mean,
it's like 31.
people are going to be looking this up, so we got to make
Yeah.
sure we're tagging this event
Yeah.
in the post afterwards. Because this is, I can just close my eyes and picture it. They cut out the ice.
Yeah. It's wild.
It's such a neat.
It's happening 2 weeks from today.
What a neat
What do you do
experience.
to
So-
prepare or train for this?
I swim outside all year round without my wetsuit. With friends, always swim, especially cold water swimming. You need to have someone around. My husband also has come and watched me swim in the wintertime when
you
I
say
couldn't find
swim,
some.
are you jumping in and running out?
No, that's a plunge. Okay, so here we go for
Let's
some
go.
terminology, right?
Let's
So
go.
cold water terminology. What you see people do on January 1st when they run in and run out is what we would call a cold water plunge. You might run in and hang out for a
right?
little bit.
You're basically calling them wimps.
No, I'm calling them. That's where they're at. Like this is inclusive, and that's something I work on a lot with my team. Is like if that's what you're doing, that's awesome, and it doesn't have to be long for it to be an endurance sport. Like getting your mind to convince yourself to go in that cold water is an endurance sport.
Somebody said you got to put your feet on the floor,
Yes.
right? Like you got to get out. Like in New England, the most important thing is take your feet out of the covers and put them on the floor.
Yeah.
Right. Dark, cold, what have you.
That's right.
I would agree with. I think that is very astute. Getting to the beach
Yeah.
is part of the race
Absolutely.
or part of the event. Just
Yeah.
to say, I'm actually going to put on a bathing suit. It's February. I'm going to drive to the water, and then I'm going to go in.
Endurance happens in your mind. Like that's what it is. Your mind is what's enduring. And your mind getting you to endure whatever. And like, I think I was up to day 891 that I've walked 1 mile every day. That's an endurance sport because every day I have to walk a mile.
That's a streak. That's a great streak.
Right?
Yeah.
And people don't think of that. They think endurance sports are marathons and ultras and Ironmans. No, like you go, there's a group that meets in South Boston every Thursday. Shout out to the plunge crew. They go every Thursday morning at 6:40 a.m. and they go in the water and they plunge. Some people stay in for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. It doesn't matter.
Can anyone show up to that?
Yeah, show up.
Where do we go?
It's at Pleasure Bay.
Okay.
Which
Doesn't
is
sound
near
like
Castle Island. Hey, Pleasure Bay is year-round pleasure. It's awesome. But yeah, there's not the Castle Island side, but on the other side, there's a little parking lot before you actually get to the water. But that's whatever your level of endurance is awesome and is to be celebrated. So that's a plunge. You can dip. So a dip would be a shorter swim, maybe 3 to 5 minutes. It's not 5-10 minutes. This time of year is more like a dip anyway. I'm like, I swam for, I think 8 minutes the other day. I was yesterday. And then a swim would be more like some kind of distance.
Any other, we went off on a cold water tangent, but any other favorite events that you like here in New England?
Oh, yes. So let's see. We said Pumpkin Van. We talked about the swims, the Boston Light Swim, the Boston Tri, while we're talking about Pleasure Bay. That's a great event. It's great for first-timers. It's very flat.
Down Southie?
It's right at Southie. Yep. You swim in Carson Beach and you bike right along the William J. Day Boulevard. So it's a totally flat bike. And then you run in the park. So that's a really kind of nice one. That was I think that was my daughter's first Olympic, and the Patriot Half. The Patriot Half is
that's a really popular one.
It is there's
Sells
a reason
out.
that it is an amazing race. Mark Walter, who started it, he really had with Sun Multisports. They recently sold their events, but that race is. It's probably my favorite. It's one of my biggest moments that I just get choked up to think about it. It's a half distance, so it's a 1.2 mile swim, 56 mile bike ride, and a half marathon, so 13.1 mile run. And it's a pond swim. The bike is largely flat with some rollers. And then the hill, and then the run, if you're a slower athlete like me, the run is in the smack dab heat of the day, and there's not a lot of sun, there's not a lot of shade, and there's one hill like right at the end, and you're like, but the race itself is such a welcoming atmosphere.
My wife loves that race. She does the aqua bike, I think.
Aqua bike, yep. And there's a cutoff time, but I know like the year that I did it, one of my friends was way over the cutoff time and they didn't pull her off the course.
Ooh, that's cool.
They're really encouraging people to get out there and race. And they great food after and a party and just, for me personally, that was the first one that that my husband and my children all came to watch. That was like the first race that they all came to watch. And I have this really cool picture of my son high-fiving me as I was like coming down the finisher chute.
So do they still come to watch you race?
So no.
Yeah.
Because there's way too many races.
But it's a natural progression in life, I
Yes.
would say.
And I don't expect them to. I mean, it's a long waiting around. And swimming races are really hard to watch. My husband was on the boat when we did the Boston Light Relay because, like, that's fun. You're on the boat. And I did kind of, I guess, force would be the word my son would use. He's 21 now, but I forced them to come when I did IRONMAN Mont Tremblant. I was like, look, I'm doing an Ironman. I was like, I want you guys to be there.
But that's a great day. I mean, that's a whole experience.
It is an experience.
That's really special. So yeah, I was gonna say like. Again, my wife and kids don't watch me race anymore.
No.
There's zero.
Mine don't either.
I'll get back from an event, and my wife will be, where were you today? But that's great. I think that's actually a nice thing. We don't do it for those accolades in that respect. So cool. Well, I'm going to ask you the now famous question that we've been asking everybody, and you're from New Jersey, so you got to take the Jersey hat off and you got to put your New England hat on. But really, we firmly believe that New England is the greatest region of this country for endurance sports. That's a fact, scientific. It's been proven. Harvard, MIT, BC. I mean, a lot of folks have just
many studies.
Many studies. Why do you believe that is true?
Each season gives you kind of something different to do. Specifically as a swimmer, I love that I can ice swim and marathon swim in the same place. And I have access to, here in Boston, I have access to so many different waters. And even I can drive to, the other states in New England and have more water to swim in. So that's first and foremost what I love most, is that you can do the different kinds of swimming. But it just I don't know, I think it makes you a hardier athlete if you have to deal with, running in the snow. And when I trained for a marathon, it was all winter long, you train outside, you're in the snow and icicles on your eyelashes. I'm kind of a fair weather cyclist, but when you train on your bike indoors, you build a different kind of mental strength that you also need for endurance sports. As we said before, it's all in your mind anyway. So you're building that mental strength from a different perspective. So I think you just kind of have, what's the thing? If you don't like the weather, it's going to change. So it's the same thing with endurance sports. Well, if you need to do something different, you have all the opportunities to do all the different things you need to try.
That's a fantastic answer.
That's a great answer. Yeah.
It encompasses the folks that we hang out with, basically.
Yeah.
But sometimes people look at us and oh man, it must be so hard in the winter and it must be terrible. And while those days are hard, I think it's what makes us appreciate the nice weather or creates that mental toughness. So season seems to be the recurring theme, but the seasons are pretty awesome, and I don't know what I would do without them.
Yeah.
Adina, is there anything you would like to plug?
Well, I will say that one thing that is very exciting right now, because it's the month of February as we're recording this here, is Team Be Real just celebrated its 3rd birthday.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yay. Yeah. And so every year on our birthday, we do have a special annual membership that we open up to any new members. If you are looking into the team and it's not February, we do have a monthly membership, so you always can join. And then we also I organize a virtual triathlon, and virtual races are kind of weird right now because during the pandemic they were like yay, but they still have a place, especially for the newer athlete, where you can choose where you want to race, choose when you want to race, and how you want to do it. You can do it in a pool. You can create your own little course to give yourself experience before you go to that first in-person race.
I would find a downhill course.
Hey, go for it, right? Why not?
No, but how does that work? You go to the pool at the gym and you clock your 200 meters or whatever you might.
Yeah. So if you do it in a pool, you wherever you choose to do it, in a pool, a river, a lake, flat course, hilly course, whatever you're working on, you just do the prescribed events and report in your distances. And for anybody who's around here, I always pick a weekend that will come and meet up together. So if someone's doing it for the first time, they're like, oh, I could use some help to understand how to set up a transition or, put on my wetsuit or whatever it is. And we have a little just a do-it-yourself try day.
Is there a website to sign up with Be Real?
teambereal.com.
All right. That's
all right.
easy.
Well, we'll be sure to tag Team Be Real and Adina in our follow-up post after this podcast goes live.
Great.
So, hey, thank you for being our guest here on the New England Podcast. It's been awesome talking to you.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a great conversation.
And we want to thank our sponsors, Lark Fine Foods, which you'll be getting hooked up with a little box of delicious cookies. They're a 100% women-owned specialty food company.
All right. I need to know about this.
And
you will know about them, and hopefully they'll make some of the cookies will make it home for your husband and kids. But
they're based on the North Shore in Massachusetts.
Awesome.
And also Team Keep It Tight, a Massachusetts-based cycling team that runs the Kit for Kids Bike Day event in Boston. And thank you to the Everyday Athlete book about balancing work, family, and fitness.
Yeah. So thanks for listening to the New England podcast, the New England Endurance podcast, showcasing the vibrant community of New England endurance sports. For those that want to learn more about Team Be Real, the sponsors, the events we talked about, especially the one where you got to cut a hole in the ice and you got to dip in there, we're going to tag it on our Instagram page, which is at New England Endurance. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. It's available on Spotify, on Apple, and Google. And I hope everybody has a great week of endurancing. I'm going to trademark that. So thanks for listening.